Now that we're in this situation, because God said those that bless Israel will be blessed, those that curse Israel will be cursed. And up to this point, up until December 23rd, we were being blessed, and we can talk about why in a minute, but let's talk about now that we are in a curse, what can Donald Trump do to try to get us back on the right side of the equation? And so there's 10 steps, which I would encourage Donald Trump to take all these steps as quickly as he can, because we got to try real hard to get from being over here on the wrong side of the equation. We want to get back to being blessed as a nation. So we want to bless Israel. Number one, what I would recommend is Donald Trump, during his inaugural address, to disavow and renounce UN Security Council Resolution 2334, specifically in his inaugural address. Now, a lot of times inaugural address, it's supposed to be a time for kind of big thinking and not a lot of specifics, but I think he should take this step, renounce it during his inaugural address. Also, all the nations that voted in favor of this resolution, I believe sanctions should be put on all of them. All of them, and that would include France and the UK, which would create potentially diplomatic problems, but I believe it would send a sign that we stand with Israel no matter what, and what you did to Israel, we can't allow to have happen. Number three, Congress should issue a declaration that they disavow and renounce, and it's not the policy of the U.S. government, and we do not stand behind Resolution 2334. This is something Congress could very easily do. Donald Trump could come out and endorse this. So that would be a very important. Congress should do that immediately. Number four, the Trump administration should immediately introduce another UN Security Council resolution which would overturn the previous one. Now, earlier I said, well, that it's not going to pass, and that's right. But we need to do this for symbolic reasons. Number one, to show that we do not stand behind this resolution. We want to overturn it, showing the entire world and showing God that that's our intention, and that it would make the rest of the world vote again. Number five, Trump should immediately move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem.
Right.
Can I get some applause for that?
Yes. Amen.
Now, Trump is already talking about this. That we've already had a lot of talk about this, that this could happen, but it can't just be words. It's actually got to happen. So Trump's been talking about it. He's actually going to, it's got to happen. Now, what would happen if that happens? The Palestinians are going to go crazy. There would be violence. But we've got to show that U.S. government policy is not dictated by threats of violence. Number six, Trump should cut off all funding to the Palestinian Authority immediately. Amen. And considering how much debt we're in and how much terrorism they're involved in, I don't know why we're doing it in the first place, but that's something we should immediately do. Number seven, Donald Trump should come out and publicly announce, this would be a huge move, but if I was Donald Trump, this is what I would do. I would come out, publicly announce that the United States, his administration, will never recognize a Palestinian state under any conditions. Once again, the Palestinians would go absolutely crazy. There would be violence probably all over the Middle East. But once again, we cannot allow our policy to be dictated by threats of violence. Number eight, this would be the biggest move of all. Donald Trump should publicly come out and publicly announce that every inch of East Jerusalem, every inch of the Temple Mount, every inch of the West Bank, every inch of the Gaza Strip, every inch of the Golan Heights, every single inch belongs to Israel.
Right. Yes. Amen.
Now that would create the biggest uproar of all. I don't think that Donald Trump or any other president would ever do that. But if I was president, I would go out on the White House lawn. I would make that announcement that every single inch of that land belongs to Israel forever. That is the permanent policy of the U.S. government. That's what I would do. Number nine, the United States could be defunded in whole or in part. Now, this is a little tricky because some people said, why don't we leave the UN altogether? Because it's a horrible globalist organization. They do all kinds of horrible things. And so that makes kind of sense. However, we want to keep our seat on the UN Security Council because now that Trump is in, we want him to use that power to protect Israel. Because if we left the United Nations, if we left the UN Security Council, well, then the rest of the world could gang up on Israel and just go hog wild crazy. Have you heard that phrase? They would just go hog wild against Israel, gang up on them, beat up on them. So by having that seat in the UN Security Council, we can protect Israel. But can we defund them in whole or in part? At least in part. So that would be an important step. And then number 10, Donald Trump could make an immediate presidential visit to Israel during his first week. Now, this would be largely symbolic, but it would show him on camera with his arm around Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It would show the world, we stand with Israel. So I think it'd be very powerful if he went in the very first week of his presidency. I know he's got a lot to do, a lot to get done, but I think it would be a very important step. So all those 10 steps, if we actually took them, it'd be a way to say, hey, God, we don't stand for this. We want to get back on the blessed side of the equation. And you know, God's not an unreasonable God, and maybe part of the reason we haven't seen immediate consequences is because God is saying, okay, we know the American people voted in Trump. Obama's almost gone. So we know Obama's just kind of making trouble on his way out the door. So, you know, maybe he's given a little bit of time for Trump to come in and try to do some things to, you know, rectify the situation, fix the situation. So maybe God's given us a little bit of patience there, or maybe there's another possibility. Maybe he's waiting for the other shoe to drop with this other potential resolution. We don't know whether it's going to happen or not with this other potential resolution where we could see the establishment of a Palestinian state, which if you follow my work, you know I've been warning for a very, very long time that once a Palestinian state is formally established, all hell is going to break loose in America. So it's the most important prophetic marker that we've been watching for a very long time. I've said it on this show, and now it's more timely than ever, Pastor Jim.
Wow, Michael. Powerful. Powerful.